Hello and welcome to the podcast, where today we're going to be talking about Hello and welcome to the podcast, post-irony, The Incredibles, and John Cage. Now, if you're familiar with music composition or music theory, you've probably heard of 4:33, 4 minutes 33 seconds. It's a song that John Cage wrote. It's a composition that he made in 1952, comprised of 4 minutes 33 seconds of rests. Now, it's not silence. The idea is that the audience kind of becomes the music. You know, the space that you perform it in, there's enough noise going on without the instruments being there, and it kind of opens you up to this whole new world of sonic possibilities. I'm not going to talk too much about this. I had an idea for an episode where I talk about what this means for copyright, right? Can anybody own this idea, this silence? But I decided that was a dumb idea for a podcast. So instead, I'm going to talk about how that relates to irony, post-irony, and sincerity, and then how those are manifest in this podcast. And don't worry, there is going to be a cover of 4:33. Of course, we can't not include it, but I will include it at the very end. This is my olive branch to you. I'm trying to respect your time, even though I put in fake ad breaks. I just think that they're cool to have. I don't have any ads. I just want to ask you to email me and be my friend. Parasocially, of course. Please stay away. I don't want you to stalk me. Just have me. Yeah, I think it's best if we keep things parasocial. I'm not really ready for. Anyways, now for the rest of the podcast. What even is post-irony? Okay, everyone knows that when you want to talk about irony, you want to talk about Jonathan Swift's 1929 book, A Modest Proposal. That's probably when it came out, but we're not going to talk about that. Other people talk about that. We're going to talk about The Incredibles. There's a scene in The Incredibles where Mr. Incredible, living his life as Bob Parr, is working in an insurance agency, and everyone's favorite character, Mrs. Hoganson, comes in, and she says something along the lines of, "Denied? You're denying my claim? I don't understand. I have full coverage." To which Mr. Incredible replies, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Hoganson, but our liability is spelled out in paragraph 17. It states clearly," and then Mrs. Hoganson, stammering, says, I can't pay for this." At this point, the phone rings, and Mr. Incredible picks up the phone to talk to his wife, Elastigirl. They talk. Mr. Incredible hangs up the phone and turns back to Mrs. Hoganson and says, "Excuse me, where were we?" And then she replies with something along the lines of, "I'm on a fixed income, and if you can't help me, I don't know what I'll do." And then she cries. And then, this is the moment, right? Mr. Incredible leans in, says, "All right, listen closely. I'd like to help you, but I can't. I'd like to tell you to take a copy of your policy to Norma Wilcox on," and then he whispers and, hands her a pen and paper and says, "Norma Wilcox, Wilcox. Mr. Incredible wants Mrs. Hoganson to write this down, clearly. And she does. Anyway, he says, "On the 3rd floor, but I can't. I also do not advise you to fill out and file a WS-2475 form with our legal department on the 2nd floor. I wouldn't expect someone to get back to you quickly to resolve the matter. I'd like to help, but there's nothing I can do." And that reveals a lot of interesting stuff about irony. Now, is it ironic or post-ironic that Mr. Incredible says, do this, but it's not going to help you? There's a case for it being just a different flavor of irony used for a positive example. What would be undeniably post-ironic was if he were to be ironic about being able to help her and then have a moment of sincerity. Oh, wait. To resolve this scene, Mr. Incredible leans in and says, "Pretend to be upset." He knows what's up. this is the return. This is a post-ironic moment when he leans in and says, "Pretend to be upset." He's returning to sincerity from his ironic stint. That's post-irony. And now, what does that terrific scene from The Incredibles have to do with John Cage or this podcast? Well, a lot of people don't like John Cage because of 433. They think it's dumb. They think it's stupid. And it became kind of ironic to enjoy this music. Maybe you're online and you see a meme with something like pass the aux chord, pass the auxiliary chord, and I'll play 433 by John Cage, something like that. People think that it's garbage, but they're saying, when I'm out with my homies, this is what I'm going to play, is this kind of music. And that's funny. But there's a post-ironic moment when you pass the aux chord and the homie actually does play that song. And you're like, okay, you're just joking, you're just joshing around. But what if the homie is actually enjoying this music? What if that's what you all are listening to and enjoying, free from ironic constraints? What started out as irony has resolved in sincerity. Past the aux chord, that's what you're playing. And you all have a genuinely good time. Now, I'd like to address the first episode of this podcast on the British Museum. Now, my microphone was not working very well. If you listen to that episode, you'll understand what I'm talking about. My microphone was not working that well. And I understand that a lot of people would do a bit like that for laughs and goofs and gaffs. And I wasn't doing it for laughs or goofs or gaffs at all. I'm not going to spoil the episode because I do talk about things in that, but that is an example of this podcast and post-irony. I am an advocate of sincerity. I like to do things with sincerity. And I might deceive you from time to time. I might do a little goof and gaff myself. But what I'm trying to communicate is always sincere. When you pass me the aux chord and I pull up my podcast on the British Museum, there's an element of sincerity to that. Mostly narcissism. If you pass the auxiliary to one of your homies and they pull up a podcast that they themselves made and said, oh yeah, listen to this. Any podcast in general, if you pass the aux to a homie and they play a podcast, that's a little dubious. I would think. There's no sponsor. There's no goblin energy. Send me an email if you want. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for listening to Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'll play that cover of 433 that I promised on the way out. I'm just going to pull up my phone and then I'm going to start a timer and then we're going to listen to the whole thing together or you're going to log off and either is acceptable. Okay. What's going on in the group chat? Oh. Gosh, the reviews ain't worth that good. Mm-hmm.